I'm Mike Roberts, Principal Analyst in Informa Telecoms and Media. I'm here at the LTE Americas event with Erik Neitzel, member of the technical staff at US Cellular. Erik, we saw a very interesting presentation from you earlier where you touched on a number of things. The basic thing I'd like to ask is, what are your plans for LTE?
Well, as we publicly stated, our plans for LTE are to push ahead with trials beginning in 2009 later this year and into 2010. And depending upon the outcome of those trials, make vendor selections and then proceed forward with network deployments when the market develops.
Mm-hmm. You also have some opinions on voice over LTE. Obviously, voice is still the core of the mobile industry in terms of revenues. We're seeing some real increases in data revenues across all operators, but voice is really still the main event, and voice over LTE is not fully standardized or even fully decided how people are moved forward. What are your views on that, voice over LTE, and how it'll progress?
Well, I think as an operator, we need to obviously look at voice over LTE as a long-term play. I think what you'll see is in the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see a true voice over IP solution over LTE. In the meantime, what we need to concentrate on is mitigating any fragmentation in the industry with concurrent services for voice. So whether that be using voice over your existing legacy 3G or 2G networks and how that couples together. So part of our presentation the other day was trying to get some consensus on exactly how we'll deploy those concurrent services going forward up until the time that voice over IP over LTE is ready.
So that's the challenge, but is there any consensus? Are we really at the stage where there is no consensus and it still has to be formed, or do you see progress on that? Or? Well,
we're trying to flesh that out. So I think the One Voice initiative, which was announced the other day, which will take existing Release 8 and eventually Release 9 standards and basically push those forward through an industry consortium, is definitely very encouraging. I think how we're going to use voice services concurrently with LTE is still to be determined at this point, but it's something we have a high level of interest in.
Okay, and I think our view as analysts would probably be that the migration of voice minutes to LTE is going to be very gradual. It's going to start small, it's going to start slowly in the sort of 2012-13 time frame, perhaps a little earlier, and it's really going to be quite a gradual migration off the circuit switch networks, which, as you know, are very well established, very competitive economically, onto LTE, VoIP over LTE. Would you agree with that view, or?
Absolutely. I mean, as a company that differentiates ourselves with superior customer service and high quality networks, I think we're going to take a very gradual approach to eventually migrating our bread and butter voice networks to LTE when the time is right. I think through this One Voice consortium and initiative, I think that's going to really spearhead and maybe and forge through with development for voice over IP, but I think until that's mature and ready, I think that's the time at which we'll migrate.
Could you tell us anything about, you're obviously a major operator in the US, I think it's fair to call you a regional operator. What role do you think that you'll play? Do you see yourself on the cutting edge of LTE, like the Verizons of the world? Do you think in your position it's probably better not to be on the absolute bleeding edge of these new technologies? What's your view of that?
Well, I think US Cellular in the past has been considered a fast follower with technologies. I certainly think that's the case here with LTE. Again, we are going to be moving it forward with trials late this year and into next year. So there are other operators, the Metro PCSs and the Verizons, who currently have field trial networks up and established, and will be fast followers, I think, with LTE. But I think more will be right behind the innovation curve rather than taking the lead and taking charge with that. So.
I know from your presentation and your job title, you're a technical expert as well. I'm not going to ask too technical a question, but spectrum is a big part of LTE. What spectrum you have, how you can use it to evolve to LTE. Do you have anything you can share there in your position as an operator? What spectrum you might use for LTE, and if you need to go get new spectrum, or if you're okay on that front?
Well, I think the first utilization or the first deployments of LTE, as I discussed yesterday, are going to be over 700 megahertz in AWS. We, with limited partnership with other entities, are looking at 700 megahertz in AWS. We do have an interest in eventually deploying LTE over PCS, which I think is you're going to see probably in the next year to year and a half. So I think certainly, from other operators, the 700 megahertz AWS play is something that we're also looking at. So initially.
Erik, thank you very much for your help.
Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate it.